Hello, welcome back to another episode of Wealth, Purpose, Peace. I'm Jonathan Hall.
I'm Brian Grant.
And we are financial advisors with Warburton Capital. Our goal with this podcast is to walk through questions that we get asked as financial advisors all the time. And today we have one of my favorites.
Yeah, so the question is, should I help my kids financially? I think the real question for most parents when we hear it is, how much should I help my kids financially? And there's no perfect answer. It's going to depend, like everything on this show. It's tough because it's a parenting decision as much as it is a financial one. And so our goal with this one is just to help you think through some of the trade-offs of helping versus not, maybe when it makes sense to and when it doesn't, and then how do you hopefully strike a good balance between, creating a lifeline without creating a system of dependence. So that's the goal. So I guess to start, just simply, what are some of the ways we see people help their kids? Because we see a ton.
I think the most common way that we see people helping their children financially is paying for college. And there's a variety of ways to do that. I think that will be a standalone episode on this show someday.
Sure.
But paying for their kids' college education is a big one because it's a massive financial cost, and the timing usually comes somewhat close to retirement, particularly if someone wants to retire early. So that's one way. Paying for private pre-college education is a way that we see a lot of families investing in their children. But then we also see parents giving money to their children in a brokerage account or in a UTMA account or Roth IRA account. And we've got an episode pending about that, about opening a Roth IRA for your child and the right way to do that.
Right. There's a ton of ways. Home down payment assistance, a wedding, maybe even just favorable loan terms for them to buy into a business. We see a ton of ways to help. I think some of the ways, and then really just some of the situations and the relationship dynamics are more successful than others for both parties. So I think the intentions are often good, but that doesn't inherently lead to good outcomes.
And what's interesting is, you and I have a unique vantage point sitting with couples a lot of times, and both of us being married ourselves and knowing what that's like, building a life with somebody and raising children with somebody, and it's awesome, but it has its challenges. And we get to sit with folks and talk about money and as it relates to their family and their goals. And what I found in working with those couples is that a lot of times this can be a big area of disagreement, and that the disagreement often comes from how they were raised themselves. So mom or dad may have been raised in a household where they received no support, and then they had to dig it out of the dirt on their own, and they want their children to be able to do the same. But then the other spouse might be saying, well, I got my college paid for, and that made it to where I didn't have to go work super hard, and I was able to focus on my grades, and that gave me this opportunity, and that can lead to some big conflict. This topic is an area where working with a professional can be super helpful.
Yeah, you need it. It's helpful, and in those cases, just to have somebody objective facilitate a conversation and think through both sides. Because when you come into that conversation with your own baggage and your own beliefs based on your personal history, a lot of times people just back into a corner and they don't want to hear the other side. So I enjoy it when we can help facilitate those decisions, and normally it gets to a place of at least better compromise or maybe understanding where the other person's coming from. But I think both of those viewpoints, let's say the one that wants to help more than the other, that's the tough part, is both of them are kind of right. Like they have a good point that they're trying to make, which is, again, how do I provide some support? I'm all for helping you have a leg up, have an advantage, maybe start a little more debt-free and not under this crushing weight of debt, but I don't want to create this system of dependence. You have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. I'm not going to be there forever, and it doesn't do you any favors to not become a self-sufficient person on your own. So it's tough because I can see the argument from both sides having merit.
A lot of it has to do with the nature of your children as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 3 kids, 10, 7, and essentially 4. Next week he turns 4. And even at that young age, you can start to see their financial tendencies begin to pop up, right? And I always like to pick on my 7-year-old who is really into claw machines. To be fair, he's quite good at claw machines at this point. He comes home with several prizes from the claw machines after the arcade. But claw machines are essentially childhood slot machines, right? It's gambling for kids.
Yeah.
And so part of me, in the back of my mind, what financial advisor brain is going,
I got to watch this.
Yeah, I got to watch this.
Slippery slope.
Yeah, but it does come down to knowing your children and knowing how support is going to help or hurt. Because while I think most people want to move the ball forward from generation to generation, they don't necessarily want to create dependency. They want to create support and give assistance without creating dependency. The most common saying on this matter is that families go from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So you have the generation that built it, and then it gets passed to the next generation. That generation has a feeling of stewardship. And then the generation after that is the one to really watch out for, where there can be dependence or maybe a lack of appreciation. Not always. We work really hard to help families navigate that. But yeah, ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to build generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to help our kids have a better start than we had when we started. And hopefully we had a better start than our parents, and so on and so forth.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, to make things better. You don't want to do that at the expense of them or yourself. And maybe that's where we pivot to now is we've seen parents overextend themselves. And again, it's one of those things where the intention is good. The heart of it's good. You love your kid. I get it. I love my kids. I want to give them the world. But I don't know how much it helps them to create a situation where I've overextended, over-leveraged myself financially. Now my retirement's in question. I mean, you run the risk at a certain point of just becoming another burden that they have to support when they're young adults and you're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s. And because I've heard you say, right, when you're on a plane, they tell you to put your own mask on before you help others with their oxygen mask. And I like that analogy. It's great to help. A good starting point before you even get to the how and doing it purposefully is like, can I afford to? Does this just make sense? Or am I creating a possible situation where I'm giving them money today, but it's going to cost them a lot more to support me throughout my retirement when I need it now?
I do think there has to be an order of operations to some extent, right? Who are we taking care of first? And I do think we need to take care of ourselves first, right? You often hear the phrase, Jesus said it in the Bible, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Great.
Mm-hmm.
We want to love others. We want to love our neighbor. In this case, in this instance, our children, right? We want to love our children. But there is a second part to that phrase, which is love your neighbor as yourself. There is implied a certain love for self and taking care of oneself that in financial planning, I think is important because like you said, I've heard you make this point. If we don't take care of ourselves today, yeah, maybe we can kind of muddle through our 60s and maybe even our 70s. Maybe we just keep working. But ultimately, if your financial plan falls apart in your 80s or your early 90s, and you're having to then rely on your kids, then it may have been better for everyone for you to just have invested in yourself first.
Yep.
And so the question is, how can we walk that line? This is where working with a professional can be very helpful. How do we walk that line between your security and their opportunity and try to allot to both?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that's crucial, but let's assume you did that. You're good. You can afford it. You got to know your kids. I'm not going to be able to spend an hour and a half with you and know your kids better than you, right? I mean, it's just, your kid. not who you want them to be, not who you hope they will be. You know who they are today when you're thinking about giving the support. And you just need to be honest with yourself about that and try to think through and help you think through it, but know your kid and bring that to the table so we can help you think through ways that will do just that. Will strike the balance between giving them a leg up, making it a little easier for them, but making it so that they have to contribute too. And there are expectations that are communicated before you give. It goes back to anything like this. When the values are passed alongside the money, I think that is when you see the most success. When money is just handed over blindly or out of habit or because that's just what good parents do, it doesn't tend to work. It works better when it's purposeful and there's lessons and conversations.
Right. Are we acting with intention or are we reacting to expectations from our kids or from the outside world or because all their friends have it, right? And I think that's a really interesting area too, is just being able to stand firm in what you believe as a family. And this is what we're doing. This is what we believe about money. This is where our money comes from. Even kids as old as ours, pretty young, but we can start to have those conversations about money. This is where money comes from. If you break that, yes, we could go out and go get another one, but maybe we don't this time. Maybe this is the time for you to learn that money doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
Someone went out, your mom and dad went out and worked hard and earned that dollar. And if you'd like another one, then it's time for you to earn $1 and you can go do these chores and I'll pay you $1 and it's going to take you a couple weeks, but then you'll earn some money and be able to buy that back. And with that example, you can tell the age of our kids, but the concept remains no matter what the age is.
Right. But it's simple conversations like that. Those are the same things. It's as simple as, oh, Dad, I want you to stay home today and we can go do whatever. I have to go to work because this doesn't all just happen. It happens because we work hard and Mom has a role and I have a role and our family has a role and you have a role in that family and your hard work will be rewarded financially or otherwise. And so it doesn't have to get complicated or crazy. You can find age-appropriate ways to communicate those values. And your kids are smart. Kids remember everything they hear. They're going to get it. And when you start it young, I think they pick it up and they stay with it. The last thing I'd maybe mention is just knowing your kids, plural. Like if you have more than one kid, different kids have different needs. And you got to decide what fair looks like to you. Doesn't necessarily mean making everything equal. Like I gave this one this much, so I have to give this one this much. That doesn't necessarily help child B if he's totally different than child A. I think more you want things to be equitable, which is I did this for this kid because it made sense and it's what they needed. My other kid has these other sets of, their own advantages or strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to need more help in this way. So maybe I don't need college support because they did better academically. Maybe they need some help, with X, Y, Z, and I'm more willing to provide that. So
that's something that we help clients of all asset sizes. I think most commonly we've had these conversations with high net worth and ultra high net worth families where they're trying to determine what does fair look like in our family? If we want to treat the kids equitably, what does that look like when we have these assets? We have a family business. One of the kids maybe works in the family business or is taking it over. And so there are shares involved and valuation of shares involved, or maybe there's family land or a family trust or these liquid assets. How do we split that, right? Do we chop up the business and our kids who don't work in the business owning part of the business, or kids that don't want land owning part of the land? Or maybe that's the right thing. Maybe it's trying to make the values equal in terms of dollar values. There are a myriad of ways that you can analyze it and try to make it equitable and make it make sense. And there are also times where you may have one child where they are not good with money and they're an adult and the claw machine thing turned into something much worse, and maybe they're just not able to handle money. And so then we have to plan on creating support structures around that family member. And maybe it's a trust or someone in charge of helping that person with their financial needs.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and I mean, maybe a good way to end it would be, again, we like to help people think through this to the point that you even developed. We kind of worked on developing a whole family wealth transfer process that is age appropriate. It's tailored to you and your kids and your situation, but helps do just this in a way that's more unique to you and your family. And how do we pass on values and that side of the legacy as much as the financial side? But it's been a really useful tool that we've seen with people.
It has been. It's something we're really interested in and passionate about, is helping that next generation learn about money
Yep.
and learn about compounding interest and the concept of a budget, and just slowly adding these building blocks year after year of how to be an adult 101. And sometimes hearing it from, professional looking guys in a conference room comes across a little bit differently than hearing it from mom and dad.
Yeah.
Just another lesson from mom and dad. So our conference room has become this place for families to bring in their kids of a variety of ages and talk to them about these matters and to teach them just a little bit more each year about how to do this. What does money mean in our family? And we'll take it as far as, for some families, we'll have a full day retreat when the kids are adults and they're old enough to begin having these conversations. Say, hey, this is the wealth that we've built as a family, and here's where it came from, and here's where our family came from, and here's how we made this money, and here's what it means to our family. What do you think it means? What was it like? And you and I will sit there and interview ahead of time the other generations of the family and say, what was it like growing up in this family? And then we get to facilitate this really rich conversation, no pun intended, this rich conversation about wealth and about what does it mean to be us, and to have these resources and to pass this on to the next generation. And what things are we going to do to make sure that our children are not that third generation that loses the money?
Yep. Yeah. It all drives it, right? How do we help without hurting, right? How do we pass this legacy forward and carry on the history of our family in a way that's productive and useful without it becoming a burden or ending up hurting? So we'd love to help you think through that. We've enjoyed doing that with families.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that is the question behind the question with all of this. I want to help my family. I want to move the ball forward and create generational wealth, but how can I help without hurting?
Yep.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Wealth, Purpose, Peace. We'll see you again soon.